Fans, this is a new series where I'll discuss what-if scenarios within the Godzilla universe. For the first episode, we're going to talk about the fan-made film Wolfman vs. Godzilla. In the 1970s, drafts were made for a fan film titled Wolfman vs. Godzilla. The film was directed and produced by several former Toho filmmakers. The director and producer, Shizu Nakajima, worked for Toho as a production assistant on projects such as Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and The Terror of Mechagodzilla. When he left Toho, Nakajima began working on his fan film along with many former Toho employees. The film was shot in 1983, but due to legal issues, the film has not been completed or released officially. So what if this film was made? What would it have been about? Well, apparently the plot of the movie would have had a werewolf appearing in Japan. He becomes irradiated and grows into a kaiju. Wolfman then would encounter Godzilla in the countryside and they would fight. It is mentioned that Godzilla would return to his early Showa roots and would be portrayed as a rampaging monster. Godzilla would be presented, however, as the lesser of two evils when compared to the Wolfman. This would make the Wolfman the real villain of the movie. This film went through a lot of development and started out as a short film. One of the drafts actually featured Godzilla and he would resemble his Mosu Goji suit design. The Wolfman was, interestingly enough, initially supposed to resemble a mummy with a head that was similar to one of the Gargantuas from the War of the Gargantuas. The film was supposed to have the Wolfman face off against Baragon. In 1983, production changed and the film was changed from a short film to a full feature-length film. The Godzilla suit would be based off the King Goji suit design, and this is the version of the film most people are familiar with. It was intended to piece 10 hours of raw footage of the film together for a DVD release. This unfortunately did not happen, but many of the clips have since been released. The Wolfman had an animatronic upper half that was used, and the crew used a second full body suit for the transformation sequence. Where would this movie fit had it been released? I'm not entirely sure. While the suit designs would have been Showa-era designs, I think that this film probably would not have worked in that universe and its established continuity. On its own, the film would have been really cool if it was officially released. Wolfman vs. Godzilla is an interesting premise, but it also looks like it might have been similar to King Kong vs. Godzilla. With that being said, I hope that one day we get to see it. How would Godzilla fit in with the monsters from War of the Gargantuas? In this episode of What If, we're gonna dive right into it. So for starters, which Godzilla design would be used? War of the Gargantuas came out in 1966, and a Godzilla film had come out the year previous titled Invasion of Astro Monster. In that movie, the Godzilla suit used was called the Daisenso Goji. Let's use that design for this scenario. So based off of everything that we know about the Gargantuas and Godzilla, what would happen? Well, assuming that Sanda and Gaira didn't die at the end of their debut film, War of the Gargantuas, we could safely assume that Gaira would continue to reside in the ocean and Sanda would continue to reside in the Japanese Alps. I imagine this scenario would start when, sure enough, Gaira decides to come ashore in Japan, hungry and looking for food. Gaira would probably rampage through Tokyo as we saw at the end of the War of the Gargantuas. Gaira was no longer intimidated by the city lights. I'm sure this would catch the attention of Sanda, who would arrive to stop Gaira. A battle going on in the middle of Tokyo would surely gain the attention of Godzilla, who would make his way to Tokyo Bay to see what's going on. When he finally gets to Tokyo, Godzilla would see Sanda and Gaira battling it out. This would cause Godzilla to make his way through the city until he got to where the fighting was. Sanda would probably try and motion at Godzilla, trying to strike up an alliance. Because by this point Godzilla has fought to protect Earth, it is very possible he would accept this and team up with Sanda to destroy Gaira. Another scenario could be that Godzilla ultimately decides to fight both Gargantuas. For this video, we're going to stick with the first scenario, but the second scenario certainly makes for an interesting video idea. If Godzilla and Sanda teamed up, I think that even though Gaira is strong and would put up a good fight, he would be no match for them. I think the fight would start out in the city, lots of destruction would be caused. I'm sure Gaira wouldn't be beaten easily and would put up a long hard fight. Gaira is pretty nimble and I think he would have some advantages. He can jump on top of Godzilla or maybe even try and swing Godzilla from his tail, a la King Kong. But Sanda, paired with Godzilla and his atomic blast, would eventually push Gaira out of the city. Gaira would probably try and retreat, forcing the battle to move to Tokyo Bay and the ocean. This is where the battle would get interesting, but by this point I'm sure all three monsters would be exhausted, especially Gaira if he's the one being pushed back. Godzilla is also known to be an adept swimmer. This battle would probably start off near boats, and I'm sure Gaira would use them as weapons. I think he would try and get Sanda and Godzilla underwater, but I think Godzilla would be able to overpower Gaira. In the water, there would be a struggle, and it could last for a while. Ultimately, Godzilla and Sanda could keep the pressure on Ghidorah long enough to either kill him or force him to flee. This would be a very interesting battle. Certainly a lot of destruction would be caused, but I think that Sanda combined with the strength of Godzilla would defeat Ghidorah. I think that Godzilla's atomic breath would prove to be a valuable asset and help give him the advantage. Godzilla and the Gargantuas would have been an interesting concept. Stay tuned for the next episode of What If. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In the Showa era, Godzilla goes through a transition from destructive force of nature to hero and defender of Japan. It would have been interesting to see Godzilla's character development go down a different path. For example, Godzilla could have been more of an anti-hero, similar to how he's portrayed in the Heisei era. In this episode of What If, we're going to explore a scenario where Godzilla never became a hero, but continued on as a destructive force of nature in the Showa era. For this scenario, we're going to leave the first 4 films alone because they would have been essentially the same. We're going to start with the film where we actually see Godzilla's character change, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. In this film, I think for the most part, the events would have gone similarly with Godzilla and Rodan fighting across Japan as Ghidorah awakens. I think that Godzilla would have seen Ghidorah as a threat, but only because Ghidorah threatens Godzilla's existence. When Mothra tries to convince Godzilla and Rodan to battle King Ghidorah, I think they would decline at first, and Rodan would eventually change his mind. Godzilla would eventually realize the threat of Ghidorah and help. I think there could be a catch though when Godzilla changes his mind to join in and help defeat Ghidorah. After the battle, I think it's very possible he would leave right after or try and fight Mothra and Rodan, taking advantage of their weaker states and attempt to kill them both. However, the combined strength of Rodan and Mothra could be enough to force Godzilla back to sea. I believe this film would have gone similarly, but the battle at the end involving Godzilla, Rodan, and King Ghidorah would have been different. I think once Rodan and Godzilla were broken free from the mind control, they probably would have fought Ghidorah again because he is already an established common enemy. Once Ghidorah was dealt with, Godzilla and Rodan would have either parted ways or fought each other similar to Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. The events in this film would have gone similar to the real film, but I think that at the end, Godzilla wouldn't spare Ibra. I think he would have killed him and then tried to fight Mothra. I think Mothra would have gotten away, but I think Godzilla would have tried to kill her here. Additionally, Godzilla would have escaped the island explosion even if the humans didn't call out to him. In this film, the plot would have gone similar to how the actual movie played out. When Godzilla lands on the island, he would have gone out of his way to destroy the humans' camp. Godzilla would take Minya under his wing because they're the same species. But I think he would have been a little harsher while training Minya. Another theory could be that the film doesn't go how the actual movie played out, and Godzilla doesn't even come ashore on the island, unknowingly leaving Minya to die at the hands of the Kamacuras. For this film, I think it would have played out similar to how it actually did. Hedorah and Godzilla would have fought because Hedorah is a threat to Godzilla's existence. Would a meaner Godzilla kill Hedorah in the first battle? It's very possible. It's also possible Godzilla could severely impair Hedorah, making their final battle at Mount Fuji a lot quicker. If Hedorah was impaired before the battle at Mount Fuji, Godzilla would be able to finish Hedorah. After, Godzilla would probably cause destruction on his way back to sea. In this film, I think it would have gone similar to the actual movie, but I don't think Anguirus would help Godzilla. I think Godzilla would be on his own to fight Gigan and King Ghidorah. Could he do it? I think Godzilla's strength and anger would give him just what he needs to overcome the monsters. He would fight them because they're not on Earth just to destroy cities, but also kill Godzilla and other monsters. I think the humans would have still blown up Godzilla Tower, unintentionally helping Godzilla, and Gigan and King Ghidorah would retreat, and Godzilla would leave badly injured. This movie would have also gone similar to how the actual movie played out, except I don't think Jet Jaguar would have been sent to get Godzilla. I think the Seatopians rising to the surface would have angered Godzilla and he'd investigate. Perhaps more of Japan would be destroyed because Godzilla would arrive slower than he did in the actual movie. I think Godzilla would have beaten Gigan and Megalon. I think his anger would have powered him through the fight. It's possible Jet Jaguar could be sent in to fight, but once the fight was over, maybe Godzilla would have fought Jet Jaguar. I think Godzilla could win, leaving a path of destruction as he heads back to sea. This film would probably play out similar to how the actual one did. Mechagodzilla would be built and set loose on Japan. Godzilla would have fought Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla is very powerful, and the first battle would play out similar with Godzilla being defeated at first. For the final battle, I think Mechagodzilla would get more destruction in during the time we're waiting for Godzilla to return. I think King Caesar would have been summoned, and eventually Godzilla would return to fight Mechagodzilla again. I think the battle would have gone similar with Mechagodzilla being defeated, and King Caesar going back back to rest in the rocks, unaware that Godzilla isn't a good kaiju. I think in this film things would go a little differently. For the most part, things would go how they actually do in the movie. I don't think Godzilla would show up and fight Titanosaurus because he doesn't care if a city is being destroyed, only if he is being put in danger. I think once Mechagodzilla was finished and he and Titanosaurus were sent out, more destruction would be caused. I think eventually this would catch the attention of Godzilla and there would be a battle between the three kaiju. It's possible the humans would try and take advantage of this situation and see if the three will kill each other. I think if Godzilla wasn't killed in this battle, he would leave incredibly impaired. Would the humans take this opportunity to kill him? I'm not sure. I think Godzilla would probably get out alive just by luck. It would be a tough battle, but if the humans are already battling with Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus, the monsters are probably weakened. This would give Godzilla the upper hand. If Godzilla didn't survive the battle, then that would be the end of the series. Finally, I think this movie would have gone similar with the monsters under key-lock control. However, once the monsters are free from control, they would be under human control. I'm sure they would bring the beat down on Ghidorah, but once that was done and the key-locks were defeated, what would happen? Well, it's very possible that Godzilla would remain under control due to the humans not wanting to take a chance that he will destroy them. It's also possible that he is given freedom, but decides to go on a rampage and then heads back to sea. The monsters were all put back on the island after the fight, so it's possible Godzilla would be confined to the island just how he is at the end of the original movie. Remember how I said what if Godzilla's character had gone down the anti-hero approach in the Showa era? Well, my good buddy King Kong 1900 has a video on that, and I'm gonna link to it right here so you can all check it out. He goes through the films just like how I did, but using his approach. I highly recommend it. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and stay tuned for the next one. I've got a lot of fun content coming. Don't forget to like and subscribe.